Here.
Mrs. Messick,
Here.
Mrs. Rigby,
Here.
Mr. Valentine,
Here.
Mrs. Gillis.
Here. Okay, and then we need a motion to appoint Tyson Hodges as treasurer pro temp for this meeting only. Appointment to terminate automatically upon close of the meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Valentine. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. De Silva. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. We are moving on to our Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Penny Bailey Harvest Club students with us. Is that accurate? Yes? All right. Approval of regular minutes. Recommended approval for September 9th minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Rigby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. De Silva. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Approval of the regular work session minutes for this evening. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Valentine. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Messick. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. And approval of agenda as presented this evening. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. De Silva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rigby. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. And now we are moving on to awards and recognitions.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am pleased to introduce Ed Podnacki. Come on up. As we get ready to meet our Golden Shamrock winners tonight. Mr. Podnacki will be presenting these awards to each of our winners. He is a member of our community in addition to being a member of the committee that oversees this award because Ed founded this award, the Golden Shamrock, in 1990 to recognize those staff members who have made an outstanding contribution to our district and have had an impact on those around them. So thank you, Ed, for being here tonight. To start us out tonight, I'd like to invite up Renee Schwartz, principal of Wyandotte Elementary, to say a few words about Katsue Smith, our first Golden Shamrock Award winner tonight.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is my honor and pleasure to celebrate Kazue Smith tonight as our Golden Shamrock Award winner for both Wyandotte and Chapman. Kazue has been with Dublin City Schools for 21 years as a Japanese bilingual aide and has made such a positive impact on so many students, parents, and staff members within all of Dublin City Schools. Kazue truly embraces Dublin City Schools and being better together. She is the connector for our students and families who are coming from Japan and joining our schools. Kazue is always supportive of our students and their families. She's available to talk because she wants to make sure our parents have the answers they are looking for, and she wants to make sure she is clear in their understanding. She supports challenging conversations, she leads with love, and she knows when to push a student to do their best. Families know she is their biggest cheerleader. We have tons and tons of pages of all the people that have nominated Kazue, but here are some common highlights. She goes above and beyond to help students and staff. She is always willing to assist teachers in adapting a lesson, translating an assignment, communicating with the family, or supporting a small group to ensure success of all students. She is professional, knowledgeable, kind, funny, and resourceful. She supports students and families with the kindest heart and always has best intentions. Her skills truly have been life-changing for many students, enabling them to reach their fullest potential. She treats each student like it's her very own child. Her heart is fully engaged to ensure the students' academic, social, and emotional needs are met. She's a great role model and mentor for other bilingual aides in the district. She's been a guiding light with her warm smile and funny stories. She's a constant advocate for her students, her families, and the community. Her compassion, patience, and tireless efforts to make sure everyone still feels valued and understood have made a significant impact on their academic and personal growth. I'm not for sure what we would do at Wyandotte without Kazue. We need her advocacy, her support, her connections, and her love. She is truly a soaring eagle. Congratulations.
I got a cheating sheet.
She didn't believe us that she had to say it.
I know, I've got glasses too.
Glasses?
Yes. So first and foremost, I wanted to express my gratitude to dedicated and passionate teachers and staff that nominated me for this most honorable award that I am receiving today, especially Akane and Jillian. I truly appreciate your professionalism and friendship. I have great support from my building administrator, Mrs. Schwartz, and Mr. Ziori from Chapman, Mrs. Brown, and Mrs. Brandrett. I can't do what I do without your support. After my husband and the 3 children and I lived for 8 years in Japan, we came back to Dublin, Ohio. It was in spring 2003. For our children, this was their first experience at the United States school, and I can't imagine how scared they felt. As the parent of non-English speaking children, I was very worried about their adjustment to their unknown school environment. Despite my concern, the bilingual aides at each of my children's school, Akiko at the Scottish Corner, Takako at the Kamiro School, and Yachio at the Dublin Kaufman High School, helped their transition as easy as possible. I will never forget how grateful I was then. I can proudly say they all graduate from this wonderful Dublin Kaufman High School. The following year, 2004, I was given the opportunity to become one of them. Although it was a totally new experience to me, I knew exactly what I needed to do. return my appreciation to Dublin City Schools, which are trying to my absolute best to provide the most comfortable transition and the school environment to all of the anxious students and families. I can't thank the district enough for putting great consideration in the EL program. Without the district's care for EL students, our children's success would not have been possible. My husband and I truly believe moving to Dublin, Ohio was the best decision we have ever made. At last, I'm extremely grateful and proud to be part of the Dublin City Schools. Thank you very much.
Now you have to go get your picture taken. Over here. Okay, and for our second award winner, it's my honor to introduce Dr. Portia Robinson to say a few words about our next winner. This is Miss Jennifer Babner.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce Miss Babner. Miss Babner is a fourth grade teacher at Deer Run, and she has been a staple to the Deer Run community for over the last 20 years. Her dedication and commitment to her profession and devotion to our students is exemplary. During her time at Deer Run, Jen has put her heart and soul into supporting students and their families. She goes above and beyond to do what is needed for her students and what is needed for the staff. This is exemplified in the following comments from the parent nomination she received for the Golden Shamrock Award. What can't be said about Miss Babner? In all of my years of schooling, in the early years of my kids' schooling thus far, she has to be hands down the most effective teacher I've ever seen. Both our girls had Miss Babner, and she's calm under pressure and pragmatic with the kids. She teaches their lessons, but she also gives the kids a lot of lessons about life, communication, manners, kindness, respect, etc. In my profession, we talk a lot about meeting the learner where they're at, and Miss Babner does exactly this. Our older child was shy and had some trouble with reading comprehension. Miss Babner got her out of her shell, and she was excelling in her class. Our oldest has blossomed and will easily tell you Miss Babner has been her favorite teacher so far. The very next year, our youngest child had the fortune of having her as a teacher. She was a little shy and struggled with both reading and math. Miss Babner was patient, listened, and responded to her needs. Both of our kids are now in COG and advanced math classes, and no kid gets those type of achievements without a tremendous support system. And that is what Miss Babner is. She is always there for the kids, always their biggest advocate and cheerleader. She is amazing with the parents, and I would entrust any kid I know under her tutelage and supervision. Ms. Babner deserves all the accolades and then some. She is a true role model and leader. She is exactly what the Deer Run and Dublin community need. In closing, I just want to say, Jen, you are truly deserving of this award. Your dedication to our students at Deer Run is truly unparalleled. Your dedication to the staff, to just what needs to be done, to just contributing to a positive culture. You have to see this lady in action when she's teaching. She's absolutely amazing. But you truly embody the values of us being better together. So thank you for all you do, and this is a very well-deserved award. Thank you.
Kazue, I'm really happy you had a piece of paper because I do too. I wanted to thank you so much for this award. I'm truly honored. I feel really lucky to work in Dublin City Schools under a very supportive Board of Education and an innovative and caring superintendent. A fabulous principal who loves her staff and students every day, and of course, the best colleagues at Deer Run. I've been at Deer Run since 2004, learning and growing alongside staff and students. It's definitely home. My family is very patient with all the hours that I work. The kids are my why. I'm reminded of that every morning when I enter the classroom. Again, thank you, Dublin City Schools, for everything. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Wow. Okay.
Congratulations to our Golden Shamrock winners. Tonight, we have Mr. Melody with us to give us a tolls update.
Okay, thank you for having me this evening. And congratulations to the Golden Shamrock Award winners and Mrs. Babner. Both my daughters had her at Deer Run as well, and I second all the great comments that were made for her. The tolls update is attached to the board docs. Just a couple of highlights, since I know you have a quick meeting tonight and a busy agenda. First of all, tolls received the 5-star award on the Ohio Department of Education on the report card this year. So thank you to all of you as well, because the partnership between tolls and all the member districts is very important, especially now with the tolls model kind of shifting from full day to part day. So we are relying on the member districts to provide some of that core foundation education, and that also build into us being able to achieve that award. So thank you. Also attached is the information on the main campus expansion. Last board meeting, we did approve the design for the 50,000 square foot expansion. This will add new welding labs, new construction labs, and additional space for our health sciences. So looking forward to the groundbreaking on that this coming spring. And we'll make sure you all have an invite for that. Couple other quick updates. The last 2 weeks ago on Thursday, October 3rd, we hosted our fall advisory committee meetings. These meetings are fabulous from an input standpoint for tolls. All the tolls programs have career advisors that come in from an industry perspective and advise the academic teachers on industry's trends, what's happening in the industry, certifications. They review curriculum and make sure that tolls is on the right track to educate those kids for the needs of the future. It's a wonderful evening. I will make sure you have an invite for the winter or spring advisory meetings. It's a great time. It's something different. It's not, that doesn't take place in K-12. We bring everyone in, cater a dinner and feed them and get them off to their meetings. And then they spend about an hour with their teachers and their advisors trading information and sharing information about the programs and that aspect. So it's a very fun evening. And then finally, we hosted our 50th anniversary party on October 5th. Had a great turnout from the community and former teachers, former board members, former students. We hosted a little talk session, hearing from former board members what the education meant to them. I mean, the former students. We heard from them what it meant to them and the experiences they had in tolls and what it meant for their life and changing their careers. And then we heard from some current students on how tolls is impacting them from an academic standpoint in their next steps. So it was a very, very fun afternoon and morning, and everyone got the tour of the school and see the new labs and everything. So then I think finally save the date for Wednesday, October 23rd, which is the tolls annual school board member appreciation dinner. So. Oh, you guys noticed the Toll's 50th anniversary shirt, so, yep. And I do have a Toll's commemorative coin that I'll be picking up at the board meeting this coming Thursday night, and I'll get those to you at the next meeting, if not before. But it's a little commemorative coin with all the member districts and Toll's 50th anniversary. Any
Very
questions?
cool. Thank you so much, Mr. Melody. Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
There is no we don't have anyone for public participation, so we are going to go ahead and move on to our student representatives update.
Okay. Good evening. I just have a quick update for tonight. Last week was an exciting week for Jerome as they got to celebrate their 20th anniversary. Throughout the whole week, students got to celebrate with spearwear and special treats from the staff. Scioto's Theater will be performing Too Much Light Makes the Baby Go Blind this week, October 17th, 19th, and 20th. Their Purple Star Club is hosting the annual Powder Puff football game October 21st at 6 p.m., and the proceeds are going to be used to help veterans and their families. Scioto also celebrated the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month last week. Lastly, Emerald Campus had their very first French Honor Society induction, which there was 46 inductees, and that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Marshausen, superintendent comments.
Just two quick updates for the board and for the community. Next Monday, October 21st, we will be holding a redistricting session at Dublin Jerome High School. The event will begin at 7 p.m. I will be introducing Mr. Matt Cropper with Cropper GIS. Mr. Cropper will be giving a 25-minute presentation explaining the process used to create the maps for our new proposed elementary and middle school attendance areas. Then beginning at 7:30, maps will be placed in the commons. There'll be four identical stations in the commons, so folks can kind of walk through, look at the maps for those attendance areas. There will be a fact sheet that parents can grab. There will also be a process for community members and parents to provide feedback to Mr. Cropper, both directly there on paper at the site, and there'll also be QR codes that will allow people to go and submit comments later. Mr. Cropper then will take the comments and the suggestions from the public, look to see if there are any comments that merit amendments or changes to those maps. And then in December, we will present publicly at the board meeting in December the finalized attendance zones from middle school and elementary school for the 25-26 school year. Our goal is to keep the messaging consistent, to get all feedback to Cropper and all surveys back to Cropper. And all of that information can be found on our website under the redistricting tab. There has been some confusion and it's ongoing. People have lots of feelings about the high school redistricting process, and we haven't started it yet. I'm not sure how many different ways there are to say that we haven't started it yet. I think Dr. Schwanke has the contract sitting on her desk. We haven't signed the contract yet to start that process, which will begin in mid-January with the internal planning team. So as far as high school goes, if people show up next Monday, the 21st, hoping to have conversations about future high school redistricting, they're going to be disappointed because we haven't started that yet. And we'll just keep being consistent with that because it happens to be the truth. Also, following our meeting tonight at 7 o'clock, Dr. Shatkin will be addressing parents in the Kaufman Auditorium. Dr. Shatkin spent the day with us today. He met with our school counselors and social workers. He also met with our student advisory committee today. While he was in town, he was able to work with those groups. It's great to have a resource and for our students, and I'm not going to put them on the spot. But Mrs. Gillis and Mrs. Rigby had the opportunity to be there. Just a great conversation and how he addresses folks and is able to engage. I hope everybody will get to see that tonight as he works with us, because raising children is a true partnership. It's parents' responsibility, and we're here to help. And Dr. Shatkin raises some very important points about what our students are dealing with in today's society and how we can help them build their resilience and build their capacity to be better adults. So we're excited to have him as our in-house psychiatrist. So we're thrilled to have that. Any questions from members of the board? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to reports and action items from the treasurer's office.
All right, thank you. Tonight we have 2 approval for transfers from Kaufman class of 23 and 24. These just clear out those accounts and move them to other accounts. Item number C is the approval of 5 student activity purpose clauses. And item D is approval of 2 donations. One is for $2,400 from the Kaufman Boy Lacrosse Boosters to Kaufman Lacrosse to purchase coach apparel. And the second one is from the Dublin AM Rotary of $2,000 to Kaufman to purchase furniture for the rock shop. Now, these next 2 items actually pertain to the $145 million bond levy that was passed in 2023 at the end of last year. So just as a refresher, we've already, of the $145 million, we passed a bond anticipation note that was for 1 year of $15 million, and that was back in December. So that's going to be maturing this upcoming December. Then in the spring, we issued another $95 million of general obligation bonds. So that leaves us with $35 million of bonded authority. So what we would like to do here, you can see there's 2 resolutions here. This is kind of Plan A and Plan B, right? So Plan A would be to move forward with issuing $50 million in general obligation debt. This would pay off the $15 million bond anticipation notes, and it would also give us $35 million for the high school addition. Plan B would be, if that doesn't work out, if we couldn't get that done before the December maturity, we would issue another $15 million bond anticipation note to pay off the other one. So one thing that I want to mention about this is this does not increase the bond millage on property. And again, this is a mutually exclusive agreement. We won't be carrying forward with both of these. We'll just do one or the other. Obviously, we would want to move forward with a $50 million bond anticipation note. Excuse me, $50 million bond. All right, on to G. We have approval of multi-use facility workers. These are the folks that are signed up to work in the facilities, and this gives us the ability to pay these people as they turn in their timesheets. And then we also have 2 appropriation changes here we got 2 grants from ODNR for 2 of our schools here. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. It is recommended by the treasurer that the Board of Education approve items 7B through 7H. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Messick and Mr. Valentine. Questions or comments? Nope. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0, and we are moving on to Department of Academics and Student Learning.
Thank you. We have no reports tonight, but on the agenda for your approval is the recommendation to enter into contracted services with Andrea Gano as a substitute school psychologist. And you can see on the agenda her bio as a bilingual psychologist who will be providing services for us for one of our psychologists who will be out for medical reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. It's recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve payment to Andrea Gano, a school psychologist. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. De Silva, second by Mrs. Rigby. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Department of Operations.
We have a couple items for your approval tonight. One is amending a contract the board approved a few months ago, and I might be coming back on this contract. This contract was to have Mays Consulting, who was awarded the RFQ to not only design the cells roof, which will be going to bid later this year, but also we gave them 4 or 5 schools, I can't remember right off, to look at the warranty assessments, to assess our current warranties on the roofs to make sure how they look. The first one they did was Davis. Since part 2 of the Davis roof that we started this summer is going out to bid soon, we wanted to get this one done first. And I gave some details in my board report last week, but about 85% of that warranty roof they're recommending that we replace, and the other piece can stay under warranty. So what we're asking for tonight is to amend the agreement with Mays for an additional $42,500, and this will allow them to design, to do the testing that's required of the roof, to do the bidding and the contract administration of putting that roof on. And that will go out to bid with the other part of Davis probably, I think, at the end of November coming up. The second piece is a contract for about $3.7 million, and this is to hire Fanning and Howie. They are our recommendation. They ranked highest in our request for qualifications. Fanning and Howie is the original designer of Scioto. They designed it back in 1992-93 when the building was being built. The board in 2019 also hired Fanning back to look at addition prospects back then, and the reason that contract was terminated at the time is when COVID hit, everything was put at a standstill. So we feel that Fanning can come in and hit the ground running. So this contract puts in the key dates that we were looking for, and those dates are, obviously the school is going to be concluded by August 1st of 2026. Currently, we also have a contractor bid out. They'll be working with them, a CMR, contractor risk. That'll be coming up to the board in November. But for tonight, it's to award this contract to Fanning and Howie for $3.7 million. Any questions on either one of those?
No questions. Great. Thank you so much. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve items 11A and 11B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. De Silva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Messick. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Human Resources.
Okay, I am obviously not Mr. Boney, but I'm going to do my best. On tonight's agenda, you will see 3 certified retirements for the end of the school year. Olga Istamnia will retire from Thomas with 24 years of service in Dublin. Eileen Shaughnessy will retire from Davis with 33 years of service. Mary Beth Wolf Grace will retire from Dublin City Schools preschool with 23 years of service. And Kim Asbury with 30 years in Dublin City Schools. So we thank all of those folks for their years of service. The supplementals that you see on tonight's agenda are for athletics and building level activities and events. There's a few resignations for supplementals in there as well. You'll see a House Bill 33 stipend portion in this section of the agenda. This is a requirement for all teachers and administrators to complete. It will later be reimbursed by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Moving on to the classified agenda, we have 2 retirements tonight, along with 3 resignations. Patricia Cook will retire as a clinic aide from Indian Run Elementary School with almost 30 years of service in Dublin City Schools, I believe most of them at Indian Run. Kelly Stover will retire from Jerome with 12 years of service in our district. You'll see 6 new hires, several salary changes, and 5 unpaid leaves of absences on the agenda. As for stipends, you'll see 8 on tonight's agenda. There are 2 revisions to this group to amend staff members who are receiving stipends for the Superintendent's Teacher Advisory Committee and Hope Squad. And the next 5 stipends are to cover the middle school Washington, D.C. trip and staff members who are overseeing this event in each of our buildings. The final stipend is to provide payment for any Dublin employee who provides transportation in a school-owned van. Any questions tonight about human resources?
I'd like to thank Mr. Ulring for getting our middle school principals all online and getting our stipends for Washington, D.C. all approved at the same time, and our middle school principals for the work that go into getting that trip up and ready to go.
And going on the trip, which they will start doing in the next couple weeks. So and all the teachers. I did that trip many times. It's a lot to spend 5 days in DC with 300 eighth graders. You'll notice I'm quite happy here today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve 13A through 13C. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Rigby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. De Silva. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Rigby,
Yes.
Mrs. De Silva,
Yes.
Mrs. Messick,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Any future items for board discussion or agenda items we'd like to take the time to bring up now?
I would just like to thank the board for your flexibility in allowing us to have this agenda purposefully short so we can all hear Dr. Shatkin, and to let you know that you should plan on a lengthy board meeting on October 28th, as we've pushed a lot of things to that meeting. But thank you for your flexibility in advance.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Valentine. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. De Silva. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.